Men, listen closely. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you have, and one of the most misunderstood. When you withdraw, stop chasing, or reduce communication, it doesn't just create distance, it triggers deep psychological and emotional reactions in a woman. Many men underestimate the impact of their silence, thinking it's just a lack of attention, but in reality, it activates curiosity, reflection, and emotional tension. This video will break down exactly why your silence affects women more than you think, how they respond internally, and why this dynamic can shift attraction in your favor when handled correctly. Silence is not about punishment or manipulation. It's about giving yourself space, maintaining composure, and allowing her to experience the consequences of your absence. Women are wired to notice changes in attention, and when a man becomes emotionally or physically distant, it creates a ripple effect of awareness, desire, and reflection. We'll explore 7 key reactions that occur when you stop over-communicating or giving excessive attention. From curiosity spikes to emotional processing, testing, and even increased investment, these behaviors reveal how women perceive value, measure attachment, and respond to a shift in attention. By understanding these reactions, you'll gain clarity on her true feelings, control the interaction, and strengthen attraction without chasing or compromising your independence. By the end of this video, you'll know why your silence is far more influential than you think, how women react to it psychologically and emotionally, and how to strategically use this awareness to deepen attraction, respect, and desire, turning your absence into a tool of power rather than frustration. 1. Instant curiosity. The first reaction you'll notice when you practice silence is instant curiosity. Women are highly perceptive and attuned to shifts in a man's behavior, especially when it comes to attention and engagement. When you pull back, stop over-communicating, or simply become less available, her brain immediately takes notice. This sudden change triggers a flood of questions. Why isn't he texting? Is he busy? Is he upset? Did I do something wrong? Curiosity is a natural, instinctive response. Women rely on social cues to gauge value and attachment. When a man withdraws, it interrupts the flow of predictable attention and challenges her perception of control. She becomes curious about your intentions, emotional state, and level of interest. This curiosity often motivates her to analyze interactions, recall past behavior, and subconsciously assess how much she values your presence. This reaction can manifest in subtle ways. She might start checking your social media more frequently, asking casual questions about your day, or initiating conversations to gauge your reaction. Even minor gestures, like commenting on a post you haven't responded to or teasing you lightly, are signs that she is processing your silence and trying to understand the change. Importantly, her curiosity is closely linked to attraction. When you step back, your absence creates scarcity, and scarcity increases perceived value. A woman who notices that you are no longer immediately available begins to see your presence as more meaningful. She becomes more aware of what she could potentially lose, which naturally heightens desire and engagement. How you respond to this curiosity is critical. Overreacting, rushing to explain, or breaking your silence too quickly signals neediness and lowers your value. Instead, remain composed, allow her curiosity to develop, and respond selectively. Short, confident answers or subtle engagement maintain intrigue while reinforcing your independence and high value. Instant curiosity is the first psychological response to your silence, and it sets the stage for the other reactions that follow. Men who understand this principle recognize that their absence creates reflection, intrigue, and emotional tension, all of which are powerful tools for maintaining attraction, respect, and influence in the relationship dynamic. 2. Testing reactions. When a man begins to pull back or maintain silence, one of the most common responses from a woman is testing reactions. These tests are subtle and instinctive. They're her way of determining whether your detachment is genuine and measuring the value of her influence over you. Women are highly attuned to changes in behavior, and your silence triggers a need to understand your intentions, your emotional state, and whether she still has your attention. Testing reactions can appear in many forms. She may ask indirect questions about your day, make playful or teasing comments, or reference situations that hint at jealousy or curiosity about other people in your life. Sometimes she might act more distant or even slightly provocative to see if you will chase her or break your composure. Other times, she may increase attention or affection as a way to test whether your withdrawal is affecting her influence over you. These behaviors are deeply rooted in psychology. Women instinctively gauge a man's confidence, independence, and emotional stability through these tests. If you overreact, chase, or give away your attention too easily, it signals low value. Conversely, if you remain composed, maintain boundaries, and respond selectively, you reinforce your high value and authority in the dynamic. How you handle these tests is critical. Responding with calm confidence, measured engagement, and subtle humor shows that you are aware of her attempts but not controlled by them. You are not reacting out of neediness. You are maintaining composure and independence. This approach increases attraction because she begins to recognize that your attention is valuable and must be earned, rather than being freely available. Testing reactions also provide insight into her emotional state and investment. By observing her behavior, you can gauge her level of attachment, curiosity, and desire. Men who understand this principle use it to maintain control, influence the dynamic, and deepen attraction without compromising their independence. Ultimately, testing reactions are a direct response to your silence and detachment. They reveal her instincts, her desire, and her emotional investment. Men who recognize and manage these tests strategically strengthen their position, increase intrigue, and reinforce their high-value status, allowing the relationship dynamic to flow on their terms while keeping attraction and respect high. 3. Heightened awareness. When you maintain silence or reduce engagement, one of the most powerful reactions a woman experiences is heightened awareness. Your absence forces her to notice details she may have overlooked when you were constantly present. Your habits, your personality, and the value you bring to her life. This awareness isn't superficial, it's psychological. Women start reflecting on your interactions, your energy, and what your detachment might mean for the dynamic between you. Heightened awareness often shows up subtly. She may remember small things you said in the past, comment on moments you shared, or reference your qualities with admiration or curiosity. She could also begin to notice differences in her own emotional state, realizing she misses your attention, your guidance, or the way your presence made her feel. These moments of reflection are her mind's way of assessing her emotional investment and the significance of your absence. This reaction is deeply tied to attraction. When a man is fully available, it can be easy for a woman to take his presence for granted. Silence shifts the balance, creating scarcity, which naturally increases perceived value. She begins to consciously and subconsciously evaluate what she may be losing. This heightened awareness often leads to increased desire because your absence makes her notice your impact on her life, reminding her why she valued you in the first place. How you handle this is critical. Do not rush back into constant communication or try to fix her realization. Maintain composure and observe her reflections without overreacting. Subtle engagement, short, confident responses, or light, playful banter is enough to keep her intrigued while reinforcing your independence and high-value status. Heightened awareness also functions as a psychological test. She's evaluating whether you are genuinely detached, whether you are emotionally independent, and whether she can still influence your attention. Men who understand this dynamic can leverage it strategically, allowing her reflection to reinforce attraction, curiosity, and emotional investment rather than creating frustration or insecurity. Ultimately, heightened awareness is a natural consequence of your silence. Women instinctively notice shifts in attention and begin to evaluate your value and the emotional connection you provide. Men who master this principle maintain composure, allow reflection to occur, and subtly guide the interaction, turning their absence into a tool that increases desire, respect, and attraction naturally. 4. Emotional turbulence. When a woman experiences your silence, one of the most immediate responses is emotional turbulence. This is not anger or malice, it's an internal reaction to uncertainty. Women are highly sensitive to shifts in attention, and when you withdraw, it disrupts the familiar dynamic. The sudden lack of communication or engagement creates emotional tension, leading to feelings of confusion, curiosity, and even longing. Emotional turbulence often manifests in subtle ways. She may vacillate between moments of engagement and withdrawal, showing affection one minute and distance the next. She might send mixed signals, flirting, teasing, or reaching out intermittently, while internally debating how she feels about your detachment. These shifts are her subconscious attempt to understand your behavior, evaluate your value, and gauge her own emotional investment. This reaction is closely tied to psychological principles of scarcity and attraction. When a man is always available, a woman may subconsciously take him for granted. Silence changes the dynamic by creating a gap where your attention once existed. This gap triggers reflection and heightens desire because she is forced to recognize your significance and the emotional value you bring into her life. Emotional turbulence is her mind's way of recalibrating her attachment, processing feelings, and assessing what she stands to lose. How you respond to this turbulence is crucial. Reacting with frustration, overcompensation, or excessive engagement reduces your value. High-value men maintain composure and respond selectively, allowing her emotional waves to highlight the impact of their absence rather than creating insecurity. Subtle, confident engagement, such as brief, meaningful responses or playful banter, keeps her intrigued while reinforcing your independence. Emotional turbulence also serves as a test. She may be testing whether your detachment is genuine, whether she still matters, or whether she can regain control of your attention. Observing these reactions without panic or overreaction allows you to interpret her feelings accurately and respond strategically. Ultimately, emotional turbulence is a direct consequence of your silence. Women process your absence emotionally, evaluating attachment, desire, and value. Men who master this principle allow her internal waves of uncertainty to strengthen attraction, deepen emotional engagement, and reinforce their high-value presence without chasing or compromising independence. The turbulence becomes a tool to increase intrigue, respect, and emotional investment naturally. 5. Increased attention. When a woman experiences your silence, one of the most noticeable reactions is increased attention. This reaction is natural. Your withdrawal triggers curiosity, reflection, and desire, prompting her to focus more on you. Women respond to scarcity and independence because these behaviors signal high value, and your silence makes your presence more significant in her mind. Increased attention can manifest in a variety of ways. She may start texting or calling more frequently, engaging in longer conversations, or initiating interactions that weren't happening before. She might comment on your social media, ask about your day, or reference things you've said in the past to test whether you're emotionally invested. Even seemingly minor gestures, like liking posts, sending emojis, or teasing you, are subtle ways of increasing her attention to gauge your interest and evaluate your value. This reaction is rooted in attraction psychology. When a man becomes less available, he creates scarcity. Scarcity increases perceived value, making his attention feel more desirable. Women are wired to respond to shifts in attention and engagement because it triggers curiosity, evaluation, and emotional processing. Your absence makes her reflect on her feelings, attachment, and what your presence means to her life. How you respond to increased attention is critical. Reacting with desperation, over-explaining, or chasing her attention diminishes value. Instead, maintain composure, engage selectively, and communicate in a calm, confident manner. Short, meaningful replies, subtle humor, or playful acknowledgement create tension and intrigue, reinforcing your independence and high-value status. Increased attention also functions as a form of testing. She is observing whether your detachment is real, whether she still has influence over you, and how much emotional energy you are willing to provide. By remaining composed, you allow her increased attention to reinforce your value rather than undermine it. Ultimately, increased attention is a natural response to your silence. It reflects her heightened interest, curiosity, and emotional engagement. Men who understand this dynamic leverage it strategically, maintaining independence while subtly guiding her attention and desire. When handled correctly, her increased focus strengthens attraction, deepens emotional investment, and positions you as a high-value man who commands respect, intrigue, and influence in the relationship. 6. Subtle testing. When a man practices silence, one of the most telling reactions from a woman is subtle testing. These tests are instinctive and unconscious. They allow her to evaluate your value, confidence, and emotional independence without overt confrontation. Your absence or reduced communication naturally triggers this behavior because she wants to understand whether your detachment is genuine and whether she can regain your attention or influence your emotions. Subtle testing can take many forms. She may make indirect comments about your interactions with others, bring up past conversations, or reference your absence in a way that invites a reaction. She might tease you lightly, challenge your decisions, or create small social or emotional scenarios to see how you respond. Even minor behaviors, such as testing your reaction to delayed responses or slightly provocative remarks, are forms of evaluation. These tests are rooted in attraction and instinct. When a man withdraws, he demonstrates independence and composure, which triggers curiosity and evaluation. Women are wired to notice changes in availability and behavior, and subtle tests allow them to assess your value, confidence, and ability to maintain composure under emotional pressure. Essentially, she's measuring whether your silence is a reflection of self-sufficiency or a temporary lapse in interest. How you respond is critical. Reacting defensively, over-explaining, or chasing her attention signals low value and diminishes attraction. The high-value response is calm, measured engagement. Subtle acknowledgement, playful teasing, or concise answers demonstrate awareness without losing composure. You maintain control while letting her tests reinforce the perception of your value and independence. Subtle testing also provides insight into her emotional state. By observing her reactions, you can gauge curiosity, attachment, and desire. Women rarely test randomly. Their behavior reflects internal processing of your absence and their desire to understand their emotional connection with you. Men who recognize and navigate these tests strategically strengthen attraction, maintain authority, and deepen emotional engagement without compromising independence. Ultimately, subtle testing is a direct consequence of your silence. Women are evaluating your value, composure, and emotional availability. Men who understand this dynamic respond with confidence and calm, using her tests to reinforce intrigue, respect, and desire. By mastering this principle, you turn her subtle challenges into a tool that increases attraction, emotional investment, and high-value perception naturally. 7. Deep emotional reflection. When a man maintains silence, one of the most profound reactions from a woman is deep emotional reflection. This is more than curiosity or testing. It's her mind and heart processing the shift in your behavior and the emotional consequences of your absence. Silence forces her to evaluate her feelings, her attachment, and the value of your presence in her life. It's a psychological response that often leads to clarity about desire, priorities, and emotional investment. Deep emotional reflection can show up in various ways. She may start thinking about past interactions, moments of connection, or times when your attention impacted her positively. She might internally assess whether she took your presence for granted or how much she misses your energy and engagement. This reflection can also lead to increased empathy and awareness of the unique qualities you bring to her life, making your absence feel more significant than she expected. This reaction is closely tied to the principle of scarcity and perceived value. When a man is always present and immediately available, attention loses impact. Silence, however, creates a gap that allows her to recognize the weight of your presence. It triggers cognitive and emotional processing, where she evaluates her own feelings and the potential consequences of your detachment. This reflection often increases desire because she begins to appreciate what she might lose. How you handle this period of reflection is essential. Do not rush to fill the silence or overcompensate with attention. Allow her space to process without interference, and respond only when it reinforces your value. Measured engagement, subtle communication, or occasional acknowledgement demonstrates control, composure, and high value, encouraging her reflection to solidify attraction rather than trigger insecurity or frustration. Deep emotional reflection also acts as a natural test of attachment and desire. Women who invest emotionally during your silence are showing that your absence has made a tangible impact. By observing these signs, you gain insight into her level of interest, her emotional depth, and her attachment, all while maintaining control of the dynamic. Ultimately, deep emotional reflection is a result of your silence and detachment. It signals that your absence is meaningful, creates emotional tension, and deepens her appreciation of your value. Men who understand this principle can strategically use silence to reinforce attraction, desire, and respect, turning their absence into a powerful tool that strengthens emotional engagement, curiosity, and loyalty naturally. Men, your silence is far more powerful than most realize. When you step back, withdraw, or stop over-communicating, it sets off a chain reaction in a woman's mind and emotions. She experiences instant curiosity, tests your reactions, becomes more aware of your value, experiences emotional turbulence, increases her attention, subtly challenges you, and ultimately enters deep emotional reflection. These responses are natural, instinctive, and rooted in attraction psychology. The key is understanding that your silence is not a tool for punishment. It's a reflection of independence, self-respect, and high value. Women respond to men who maintain composure, demonstrate emotional control, and allow space for reflection. When handled correctly, silence magnifies attraction, deepens emotional investment, and reinforces the perception that your attention is earned and meaningful. How you respond during this period matters. Overreacting, chasing, or over-explaining erodes value and reduces attraction. Maintaining composure, engaging selectively, and allowing the psychological effects of your absence to unfold naturally positions you as a high-value man. Your quiet confidence becomes magnetic, drawing her attention, desire, and respect without you needing to push or persuade. Ultimately, your silence shapes the relationship dynamic. It creates intrigue, fosters reflection, and strengthens emotional connection. Men who master the art of strategic silence maintain authority, influence attraction, and deepen emotional investment while protecting their independence. Women notice, reflect, and respond, often more than you realize. When you understand the psychology behind silence, you wield one of the most effective tools in modern dating, turning absence into presence and quiet into power.